Hey guys, this is Jeff at MACkite.
And this is Jake.
And we're at our favorite beach here in Grand Haven, right outside our shop. And we're here with an exciting news of North's 2024 lineup. We have the Orbit here, and I just want to start out. They are going in a new direction with their branding, and I am excited about it.
Right?
Because they're bringing back the old school, North sail. So very well done, North. It's something a lot of you that have been in the sailing industry for a while know that North sail goes back. Dating myself, when I got into the sport in '82, North sail was prominent. So that's something new you're going to see on the North lineup for 2024.
And all of their North sail gears is going to be under this now new unified brand. Yeah. So it all existed there before, but now it's all centralized. You're really seeing the firepower behind the North Technology Group, which is pretty cool.
And I think it's a good branding move to kind of distinguish themselves. I mean, we've all known North, but this is really something that I think that a lot of people can identify with at the North sail branding. So nice work with that. But what we're going to do today is kind of go over a little bit about, first of all, the North Orbit. Who's it for? Well, you're tuning into this because you probably like to go big, and that's really what the North Orbit's about. A big air kite. They have added on the kite / free ride. So obviously it's a 5-strut kite, and what we're going to focus with the 2024 is the Orbit's a good kite. I've ridden all years of the Orbit starting back in 2020, and I think North has made subtle adjustments, and we're going to highlight some of those subtle adjustments today where they haven't changed the kite, but they've done all the good characteristics that the Orbit has, and that is it's for anybody. I've had an opportunity, I know you have, to ride a lot of other brands' big air kites.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you don't have to be a pro
no.
to get the performance from the North Orbit.
It kind of makes you feel like a pro.
It does.
Yeah,
it does,
that's
actually.
nice.
I'm not a pro by any means.
Yeah.
And it does, I mean, to be all seriousness, it does have the pilot. It's a very intuitive feel. These are words that stick out with me with the Orbit. Very intuitive, light bar pressure, and you know where it is at all times, and we're going to add to that as this 2024 they've improved on that. And obviously the hang time and the float are things that come to mind with the Orbit, and the ease of use. So you don't have to be a pro rider to get into the performance of a big air kite, and that's what I think North's done a good job.
Yep, I would agree. And to your point with the lighter bar pressure, like, you want your big air kite to be very intuitive, to know where it is in the sky, but sometimes they almost feel like a bit too powerful, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't quite get that with the Orbit.
And this has a big sweet spot about when you send it and pull in. You don't have to be quite as timed perfectly to jump. Yeah. So even old men like myself can still feel pretty cool hang time and floating without the timing not always being there. I think it's a good time to talk a little bit about the characteristics of the Orbit. We just got done talking a little bit about the steering. They do have on the wingtips here 4 different adjustment places. So you can really, again, when you think of North, you think of an intuitive flying feeling, and the Orbit, they've added their 4 adjustment points to the tip so you can refine how you want that to feel.
Yep.
The characteristic, more bar pressure, lighter bar pressure. So again, they're not changing what is already good. They're just kind of adding improvements to performance with that. The other thing I'd like to highlight with the 2024s is they are continuing to flatten the aspect ratio, so it's a little bit flattened out here. So that helps with catching you and hang time. So when you're coming down at speed, it just gives you a little bit more stability and control when you're landing from going big. So that's something that they've done subtle improvements on. Also with the bridles, again, don't mess with something that's already working really well. And North has done a nice job with their bridles right from the gate of giving you that intuitive control from the pilot's perspective, where you feel like you know where the kite is when you send it, and when you loop it, these kites will loop very quickly, but in control with a steady pull throughout that whole loop. So with their bridles, they've done just subtle adjustments, which I like. I like the fact that they don't try to make huge changes, but very small changes on each of their models.
I agree, especially after last year's Orbit. That was such a great kite. Mm-hmm. You know, not to say the 2021 wasn't a great kite, but that was a great improvement. I'm glad that they're continuing forward with that.
Again, they're trying to make a big air kite that's for everyone. Obviously, they take input from the pro riders and the guys that really can show us all how it's done. But I think North has made a product, and they continue to make some of those refinements with their materials. I know that they've improved, again, lighter bladders on their leading edge. Again, it just gives you that playful, you can really navigate and get yourself out of trouble with this. So if you loop the kite late and you see that kind of come out of a bad situation, a little bit of bar input and that thing's is gonna come right out of trouble for you.
Yes.
For sure. Another thing that's new for 2024 with the Orbit, in the smaller sizes, they're decreasing the aspect ratio, again, so that in the middle of the canopy and the kite here, get a little bit nicer landings on the smaller kites. All of you out there, you know, that want to go big, and that's usually why we get into the sport, right, Mitch? We get into want to jump and boost, but you usually do that on your larger sizes, and then the first few times you do it in your smaller sizes, you're landing, not landing them, coming down hard because you have less canopy.
Yes.
Well, I think they've addressed that a little bit in their smaller sizes by changing that arc a little bit so that it does increase the catch and the float as you come down.
So I guess the next question is, and this is going to be, I think, a bit trickier to decide for 2024 with how epic the new reach is. Who is this kite for?
I would say, you know, that's a good question. I think if you're a seasoned rider, take that how you may, a seasoned rider.
Yeah, I like that.
I would see the Orbit, you'd have one Orbit in your quiver if you stick in the North lineup, because something I think some of you that are Orbit lovers know, these kites like to be powered up. So in that sense, you're gonna go like maybe a 10 meter when others are on 8 and 9s. They like to be overpowered.
Yep.
So when I say seasoned rider, that means you've jumped a lot, maybe you've got your Woo record before. But in the North lineup, I see having one kite, the Orbit, where you're gonna really go out in powered conditions. So for myself, I'm 175 pounds, that would be a 10 meter.
Yep.
The 10 meter would be the one that I would go when others are under 8 and 9. If I wanna send it and get as much as I can out of the kite, that would be the kite I would choose. So again, as I said before, Mitchell, I think this is for, you know, any rider. But as you become more of a seasoned rider, I think you may want to dial it in depending on the wind where you live. And you'd want to get maybe at least one Orbit in your quiver for those big days where you can ride overpowered.
Yep.
And again, it is a very forgiving kite to jump with. I would think, you know, all the guys at the shop would agree that, you know, you don't have to be a real, I would say, experienced rider to get the boost and the float out of this. It has a big range as you send it up and pull in on it.
It does, yeah.
So that's what I'd say who the riders are for. And then as part of your quiver, I would definitely at least have one of these in that range where you want to go big.
I would agree, yeah. I don't think this would be the kite I would necessarily start with if you were a new rider, but to your point about being seasoned, this is kind of that next step progression. Yep. When you have you want to do big air, you want the Woo record, maybe you want to jump this beautiful pier behind us. This is the kite to do it. With the improvements to the canopy, the rip stop, this does have their nice Dacron. If you go into the pier, it might even survive.
Maybe.
So, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe you might not, but.
No, I mean, the industry is talking about materials, and they have their high intensity ripstop material. They keep making some subtle improvements in that. Again, for durability, again, I've ridden every year of the Orbit and all their lineup. I'm a big North fan. You ask anybody at the shop if they need to find a North kite, it's usually in my car.
Yep.
But again, I think this is a kite that if you want to go big and you're a weekend warrior, you ride occasionally, this is something you can definitely enjoy the full performance of the kite.
I agree. And just really quick, I know we glossed over the NMAX material is they're going to be their Dacron. So as a lot of brands are moving towards introducing, let's call them exotic materials into their lineup, keeping core kites, but then maybe having like an SLS construction or a Hukipa or a Lula. This is just going to be available in the one construction, but the NMAX is a more durable material.
Lighter.
Yeah, you know, per gram, its specs are more in line with the SLS, which is a neat part about North, is you're getting a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to the material sciences. And a big part of that is due to their investment into making their own materials. So we've seen that with their wings, in particular, the Mode Pro, the Loft Pro. We're going to see more exotics, I'm sure, in the future in the canopies, but for right now, that NMAX is really a good material. Stiffer, lighter,
and again, it doesn't
the
overly change the flying characteristics of the Orbit. It enhances.
It does, absolutely.
Its playfulness, its intuitive feeling. You're going to hear that word a lot with intuitive. A lot of the North Kites are very intuitive to fly. Something else I'd like to highlight, they do have the old battens. If you're from a windsurfing background, you know there's all kinds of different battens, but it's a very lightweight batten. Again, this helps with the flutter when you loop the kite. And I think if you've never looped a kite before, you can feel confident, actually on a lot of the North Kites, to try your first loop.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not talking a mega loop where it's below you, but I'm talking about just a down loop type loop to start out with.
Yeah.
And this is something I know that when I've ridden with this batten design, you just reduce that flutter in the loop and when you're powering the kite up.
Makes a big difference, yeah.
Yep. So the Orbit's one of my favorite. I have one in my quiver. It's a 10 meter. Again, in those days when it's really blowing hard. If you have more questions or you want to know a little more about the North Orbit, we're here to help you out. Send us an email or give us a call or send us a message. Right?
Absolutely, yeah. Stay tuned. We will have a dedicated video on the water review. Yep. We just wanted to get this in front of you guys. We've ridden it quite a bit. We've ridden previous models and we love it. We're really excited. You can't go wrong.
Right on.
Thanks for checking us out, guys, as always.